Hi, I'm Maggie.
And I'm Marin, and you're listening to
Tell Me I'm Sorry,
a podcast where we deconstruct and muse on depictions of girlhood in film, literature, and other media.
A feminist celebration of pop culture, the audacity of youth, and the ways we grow away from and into our bodies, beliefs, and dreams for ourselves and each other.
And today we are discussing...
Plan B.
You sounded like Wall-E. Plan B. It was cute.
Okay, well...
Plan B, directed by Natalie Morales, who has directed one other film called Language Lessons, which I had never heard of prior to researching for this episode. Before directing, she has worked a lot as an actress, especially in TV. Some of her previous credits include the television shows White Collar, Parks and Recreation, Dead to Me, and The Santa Clarita Diet. Maggie, before I continue, I want to go on an aside about the Santa Clarita Diet, which, as I said its name, you had a look of confusion or maybe recognition on your face, like maybe the show sounded familiar to you.
Well, I was actually responding to Dead to Me, but Santa Clarita Diet, Drew Barrymore.
Yes. Okay. Do you remember when we filmed our very first episode about Ever After, famously starring Drew Barrymore? We were talking about Susanna Grant, who wrote Ever After. And in talking about Susanna Grant, I was talking about the movie she wrote and directed called Catch and Release, which is one of the most deranged romantic films ever made. And I said, Timothy Olyphant is in it. And I was like, I find him sexy. And your response was, I don't know who that is. And we just steamrolled right past it. And every time I have listened to that clip of that episode, I just die laughing because it's so funny. Then I remembered Timothy Olyphant was in the Santa Clarita Diet with Drew Barrymore. They played husband and wife.
Oh, okay. So now I know who he is.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the Natalie Morales, who directed the movie we're about to talk about, was also in that show.
Okay.
And that's intertextuality, baby.
Nice. Nice. Funny thing about Dead to Me, I fucking love that show.
I have not seen it, but I know a lot of people really like it.
I love it. It is such a beautiful portrayal of female friendship in adulthood. Just last night, I did not know this information. I never know this information. Marin just finds all this information and then I know it because she tells it to me. But I just fucking love this. This is kind of intertextuality, but also like the universe. I watched the last episode of Dead to Me just last night. Because sometimes watching the last episode of a show that I like just makes me feel whole. And so, yeah, just last night I watched the last episode of it to feel good. No, the last episode is very bittersweet, for sure. But it's beautiful and nice. Okay.
Cool. I love this. Yay for television. Plan B was written by Prathi Srinivasan and Joshua Levy, both of whom have writing credits for many of the same TV shows, such as iZombie and Titans. So they appear to be a screenwriting duo who's worked together a lot, which I think is nice. This film was released on May 28th, 2021, direct to streaming to Hulu. And the poster tagline, are you ready?
Yes.
The morning after is just the beginning.
Yeah, I don't hate it.
And it's factually correct.
Uh-huh.
But it's just the nature of movie taglines that they're corny.
Yes. That one isn't bad, though.
No, I don't think so either.
I'm always prepared to be offended. You know?
Maggie, if I were to Google this movie, what would Google tell me that this movie is about in a single sentence?
Well, Google would say, after a regrettable sexual encounter, a straight-laced student and her best friend have 24 hours to hunt down a Plan B pill in South Dakota. That's also okay.
Yeah. It's...
Right. That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like usually they've got something wrong.
Right.
Or it's just horrifically inaccurate. Anyway.
No. I was also, as I was gathering these, I was thinking, I don't find these too bad. So I hope Maggie also doesn't find them bad, because then if she does, I'll feel stupid.
Oh.
But, okay. For a brief synopsis, written by yours truly, about what happens in Plan B, we follow two high school girls who are best friends. Sunny, played by Kuhu Verma, and Lupe, played by Victoria Moroles. Sunny's mom is out of town for the weekend, and Lupe, in classic teen movie fashion, encourages Sunny to throw a party at her house, saying it can be an opportunity for Sunny to spend time with her crush, Hunter, who wears cardigan sweaters to gym class and, like Sunny, loves anime. At the party, however, Sunny and Hunter talk, but he leaves without saying goodbye, and Sunny ends up having sex for the first time with a classmate, Kyle, who is very religious. The next morning, Sunny goes to pee, and the condom Kyle used falls into the toilet, with Sunny realizing that his semen-filled condom has been inside of her vagina all night. Worried she could become pregnant, she and Lupe try to purchase the Plan B pill at the local pharmacy, but the male pharmacist denies it to them, citing a conscience clause, a real law in South Dakota, which allows him to refuse selling her Plan B if he personally finds it morally objectionable. Lupe and Sunny decide the next best option is to drive 3 hours to Planned Parenthood in Rapid City using Sunny's mom's car. And because this is a teen road trip comedy, hijinks and danger ensues, including losing cell service, getting threatened by creepy men in a gas station parking lot, being referred to the local drug dealer to see if he has Plan B, accidentally taking speed, etc. There are romantic subplots for Sunny and Lupe, with Sunny and Hunter reconnecting, and with Lupe meeting Logan, her online girlfriend, in person for the first time. But when the two finally reach Planned Parenthood, they learn it has been shut down and return home. Both the girls' parents are very upset that they left town without permission, but Lupe ends up coming out to her dad, and Sunny vents to her mom about the pressure to be perfect before telling her mom she needs the Plan B pill. And the film ends with Sunny's mom buying it for her. And Lupe is also there, and it's all three of them together. How'd it do?
Good. Yeah, you hit it all. Hit all the spots.
Thank you. So, origin stories. Am I going first? Is that what we decided?
Yes, you can go first.
Okay. Like I said, this movie came out in 2021, which is only a couple years ago. And I just remember that the summer it came out, Ace and I were watching a lot of Kitchen Nightmares on Hulu, and there were ads, and they kept showing ads for this movie. So I was a victim of marketing, where I was like, okay, fine, I'll watch the movie. But I thought it looked good, which is why I wanted to watch it. Mm-hmm. But I saw the ad for it so many times. And I watched it, and I liked it. I thought it was funny. I thought the two lead actresses were really great in it. I thought that the portrayal of friendship was very sweet, and I liked that the movie focused on that. Rewatching it again for this podcast, I again laughed quite a bit. I teared up at parts. I think there's a lot about this movie that works, and I'm excited to talk about it because I have no idea what you think of it. So I'm very curious and scared.
What? I don't think you need to be afraid. My origin story is just that I just watched this.
Right.
I just watched it for the first time. I lived in South Dakota I moved there in 2013. Mm-hmm. And I lived there for a long time, and I've moved back and forth. It's a very special place to me. It will always feel like home to some degree. I still have a lot of friends there who are like family. And I was nervous about how South Dakota was going to be portrayed. Because the way that South Dakota and the Midwest has been portrayed in like other movies has been so inaccurate, and it really upset me. And to this film's credit, to the director's credit, to the writer's credit, I felt like it was I I mean, it was a caricature of South Dakota, but because it's a movie.
Right.
But it was done in a way that felt respectful and fun and knowledgeable. So
I don't know why I expected you to hate this movie. I think I was just insecure in my own choice.
I did not hate this movie. No, not at all. I thought it was fun. And fun in a way that also brings to light real problems.
Right.
I mean, we have so many male road trip fucking movies.
Right.
That this was so nice to watch a movie that represented other people besides white boys.
Yes.
So
I agree. Do you just want to start by talking about their friendship?
sure.
As I said when I introduced this movie last episode, I was craving something that really centered a female friendship in a way that was just comforting and nice. And I remembered that about this movie. And so when I watched it again, I found that the friendship aspect did hold up for me, because there are just, I don't know, like these two girls, just listening to them talk to each other, they're so fucking funny and they're so natural together. Like when they're in health class and they're watching this really terrible abstinence only sex ed video, and Lupe asks Sunny, if your vagina was a car, what type of car would it be? And they go on this whole bit about mine would be a Ferrari and here's why. And then Lupe says mine would be a Transformer. And it just reminded me of how my friends and I talked when we were in high school and didn't know much about the world. And it just made me really happy. I feel like I'm struggling to come up with things to say right now because this movie overall just makes me happy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something I could see myself whenever I just feel bad or I'm sick or something. I just put it on and I watch it and it will make my day better. Two, there's just not a lot of good depictions of girls being friends in a way that's not without drama. You know, like obviously they have a fight at one point at the end of the movie, but they talk it out and it's fine. I don't know, because I also kept thinking about when we watched Nancy Drew and how she doesn't get to have any substantial relationships with women or girls. And it was really frustrating. And all of that energy of her building relationships with other people was funneled into Corky and Ned. And there are no Corkys and there are no Neds in this movie, I think.
I would agree.
So
I want to add to this idea of the portrayal of friendship and it lacking drama. And like they do have a fight. I want to situate that in the context of the type of drama, though. I feel like oftentimes when girls are presented as they have this friendship, but then there is drama, it's often treated very superficially, or the issue between them is superficial. As if those quote unquote superficial issues, though, do not come from a place of deeply rooted internalized misogyny. And what I think this movie does so well is show that while they do have a fight, while they are so young, while there is this sort of dramatic response to each other's actions and behaviors, it's situated in reality. I believe it. Right. Like their fight is real and it has real consequences for them, for their feelings, for their emotions, for their futures, and for the people around them. Yes.
I agree with that, and I appreciate you in nuancing what I said earlier, because Sunny's health and peace of mind are at stake. She hasn't had the chance to emotionally process anything that has happened to her, which feels especially evident when Kyle calls her and he's freaking out and he's like, I can't believe we had premarital sex. I'm going to go to hell. And she was like, this is not my fucking problem right now. Bye. And you can see just how he, by not having to deal with potentially being pregnant, has been afforded an emotional space that she hasn't. So she's dealing with all that, and Lupe is trying her best to support her friend, which causes, I would assume, stress for Lupe too, because you want to be there for your friend. And at this point, she probably feels some sort of responsibility for getting Sunny this healthcare that she needs. Those kinds of situations make people stressed out, and when you're stressed out, you're more likely to get upset with people, especially people that you love. And so it does feel very authentic. I think that's a word that I came back to a lot when I was thinking about this movie and writing my notes about it. In that, is it the most realistic movie? Not necessarily. But does it capture something authentic about being an adolescent girl, about being shamed for your sexuality, about feeling like you have to deal with these huge things by yourself? Absolutely. I think it is authentically capturing all those things.
I like the sentiment too that it's not always a realistic portrayal of how things would happen. Particularly when they end up in the park with the drug dealer. That whole scene, which I'm sure we will discuss, doesn't feel realistic, but it doesn't matter because it serves the story, though. And it feels real to the story.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Definitely. I have a note about that scene, if you want to go there.
Let's hear it.
Okay. Because there are a few moments in this movie where the tonal balance between humor and the genuine fear and stress that the girls are experiencing, I find very impressive. I think that Natalie Morales as director does a really good job. And this is a credit to the writing too, but she does a really good job staging these scenes and managing this really tricky tonal balance. Like in the scene in the park, they are on the hunt for this Plan B pill. They're trying to get to the Planned Parenthood before it closes, but they don't think they're going to make it. And when they're at this gas station, the clerk working tells them that her nephew is the local drug dealer and he might be able to get them what they need, and that his spot is in the local park. And so they get there and it's just this shitty jungle gym and it's nighttime, and they are like, do you have the pill? And he's like, I might have it, but it might also be speed. I don't know. But he also has fake ID. So they're like, oh, okay, well, maybe we'll get a fake ID. So that way, in case they try to turn us away because we're too young, we'll at least be able to be like, we're adults. But they don't have enough money for what they want, right? Is that how, that's how it unfolds. And so the drug dealer, who it is revealed that he's the same age as them, he's 17. He's like, well, if you can't pay me with cash, you could suck my dick. And Sunny, who is so desperate and stressed, is like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to suck his dick. And Lupe's like, no, you can't do that. I'm going to suck his dick. And so they're back and forth screaming, no, I'm going to do it. And it's so funny. It's so funny. They're so good in this scene. And Sunny's like, no, I'm the one who got us into this. I should be the one who sucks his dick. And it really is played for laughs. But then suddenly Sunny says, just don't judge me, okay? And she's got these tears in her eyes. And that's when I'm like, okay, this movie is really smart. Because oftentimes in movies, when a female character utilizes sex to achieve something, we're meant to judge them, discredit their integrity, etc., because of this sexual willingness. But that's not the case here, and the movie is aware of this precedent, and it makes it explicit by having Sunny say that. And then Lupe, of course, tells her, of course I'm not going to judge you. So that's the movie's way of telling audiences, you should not judge a person for doing this. And so by the end of that scene, I'm moved. Whereas 20 seconds earlier, I was laughing my ass off at just the absurdity of it and these two girls screaming, no, I'm going to suck his dick. And it's just so sensitive. And it's capturing something authentic about these impossible situations we put girls in, where they know that they can utilize their sexuality to get something that they need. But they also know sometimes they can utilize their sexuality in order to survive. But they also know at the same time the world will tear them apart for it. And that is what is all happening in that scene that is also at the same time hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was really well done. All of that. That is a really great description and analysis of that scene. I think the only thing I would add is that when Sunny says, don't judge me, right? I love that we get this moment of, she's asking for validation from her friend, from another girl. He more or less doesn't exist in that moment, right? She just knows she has to do this thing to take care of herself. Yeah. And she's looking for this validation, this support from her friend because she knows the world will tear her apart. But who is going to be there when it does? Lupe, right? Yeah. I hear a lot of conversation about and around female friendship and how transcendent it can be. And I think that those things are true. But I think this is maybe the primary reason why it can carry women into adulthood, or at least through girlhood, why it helps us survive it is because it gives us a space. And this isn't anything profound, but it gives us this space where we're able to validate each other because we know the world won't do it for us. I think that was really profound little moment tucked into this very humorous and yet dangerous situation, which again, women often find themselves in.
Right. Because the other scene that is showing them in an especially dangerous situation is right before they meet this teenage drug dealer in the park. They are at a gas station and it is dark and they are filling up their car with gas and they're going inside to get some snacks. And when they first park, you see there are these two older men just standing there on their truck. And any woman watching it immediately gets a sinking feeling and is like, oh, okay, these men are going to be trouble at some point. They go into the convenience store. They have a whole conversation with the clerk. She recommends her nephew drug dealer. And they get back outside. They're trying to just get in their car, get on their way, get to fucking Planned Parenthood. And these two men just start threatening them. They start saying sexually suggestive things to them. They start saying really racist things to them. And it is really scary and stressful to watch. And what I admire about the scene is that it does eventually pivot towards humor. But when these men are threatening Sunny and Lupe, that is not when we are invited to laugh. We are not invited to laugh at their danger or the men's violence, but the humor to me that eventually comes in functions as a way to assure us of the girl's safety. Because what happens is as these men are getting increasingly threatening and scary, Sunny just starts screaming, I'll pee on you. And Lupe's like, what the fuck? And Sunny's like, I read that if you pee on someone, it makes them less likely to sexually assault you. And so she starts making this face and she's like, I'm going to fucking do it. I'm going to pee on you. And it's hilarious. And so it's a way to ease the tension, but it doesn't discredit the danger that they were just in. And having her go on this whole I'll pee on you spiel, it also shows us that Sunny has previously thought about what she would do if she found herself in this exact situation. So again, is the humor and the girl's eventual escape from these men the convenience store clerk comes out with a baseball bat and eventually chases them away. Is that necessarily reflective of real life? Unfortunately not. Because it could be. But sometimes girls escape, sometimes they don't.
Right.
But the movie is acknowledging the danger, and it knows that a lot of viewers will relate to that danger. Mm-hmm. And God forbid, if there's a boy or man out there watching this who had never thought about that before, he'll hopefully have learned something.
Right. Also, is it realistic that someone's going to come with a baseball bat and save you in this situation? Potentially. But it is more realistic that it's a woman that's going to save you. Oh, yeah,
absolutely.
And so, and also, when she starts saying, I'm going to pee on you, I'm going to pee on you, I loved that moment because it also illustrates how stupid the advice we are given, how stupid the advice is that we are given, and how to keep ourselves safe.
Yeah.
I had a friend whose mother told her to always wear a pad so that if a man goes and tries to rape you and then they see that you're on your period, they're going to decide not to rape you anymore. And so it's in line with this sort of, first of all, the responsibility is on us to keep ourselves safe, which unfortunately that is true.
That's just, yeah.
But then as if men who are willing to assault you are going to give a shit whether or not you've peed yourself, or whether or not you're on your period. They're not going to take time to notice that.
Right.
So a part of me is just wanting to say that in case someone has been told that and there's a part of them that has believed that. I mean, try it, I guess. If you're in that, I'll hope you're never in that situation. Right. But that's not going to keep us safe.
Right.
And that's not the advice we should be given. And it just makes me mad.
Mm-hmm.
So that scene, humorous and also, again, authentic in the way that it showed the absolute absurdity of being a woman.
Yeah, I agree. Great scene, just all in all.
Can I talk about the car?
Yes.
This is just something I've just realized, though, I've had this thought and I didn't think it was important enough to really write down or to ruminate on in a more conscious way. But now I'm thinking that it is. Okay. So in that scene, what are they doing? They have to run back to the car, right? They're trying to get in the car. The men are blocking them from getting in the car. In the scene where Sonny's going to suck his dick, she does not end up doing it. They have to get back to the car to get to safety with what happens. Did we talk about that? Is my brain...
Did we talk about what?
Did you explain the part with his penis?
Oh, no, I didn't.
Okay, I didn't think so.
I didn't. I can't. So the gas station scene happens, and then the scene in the park happens. They're back to back. Sonny decides, I'm going to suck his dick. I know Lupe's not going to judge me. She's going to support me through this. She gets her face right next to his dick, and we see his dick, too.
Yes. Okay.
Which, weirdly, I really like that I don't know, that they were just like, we're going a whole hog in this movie. And because it's a good visual gag in that he has a pierced dick. And he talks about how he got it pierced at Claire's, which that not happened. But he's like, there was so much blood at Claire's. And it's really funny to me. So Sonny is staring at this pierced penis, about to put it in her mouth, and she's like, nope, I can't do it. And so they run away, and the piercing, what would you even call it? The ring.
I'm sure there's an actual name for it.
The dick. Yeah, because it looks like an earring, but it's in his dick. It's a hoop. It's a gold hoop.
It's really large, though.
You mean his penis or the ring?
The ring. Pretty regular penis, I think, overall, but the earring is quite large.
Yes, the earring is very large. That's part of its, I think, comedic effect. The point is, Sonny, she backs her head away really fast, and she has long hair, and it's down, and so the ring gets caught in her hair, and it gets ripped out of the penis, so he's bleeding and screaming, and then she's like, Lupe, grab an ID, grab the pill, and so they steal from him, and they're running back to the car, trying to get to safety. Is that the summary you needed?
Good.
Okay.
which doesn't really necessarily have anything to do but with what I'm going to say, but it's important to the plot of the movie, and it's funny. I just like that scene.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure we finished it too. So they have to run back to the car, and he's running after them,
Right.
trying
and
to.
his pants are down and his dick is bleeding.
Yeah. It's good. It's good. And then they end up at a bowling alley, where ironically Hunter happens to be.
Yes.
But they went there because Lupe's online girlfriend Logan is there.
Yes.
Sunny does not know she's a girlfriend.
Right.
At the time.
Yes. At this point, Lupe has talked about Logan, but Sunny has assumed that Logan is a boy because of the name, and Lupe has not corrected her yet.
Logan is left with the car at some point. Sunny goes on a little date with Hunter. I fucking love that scene.
It's so good.
There are so many scenes in between all the things that I just want to say. We'll get to that though.
Well,
we're definitely going to talk about that scene.
I've got notes about that.
It's so well done. It's so beautiful. Okay. And so Logan's left alone with the car, and one of her bandmates ends up taking the car to some random dude's house for this crazy fucking house party. Okay. So now they've lost the car. They end up finding the car. They end up finding the house. All right. But this idea of them constantly losing the car, and this car being their safe space, and them needing to return to it for safety. I have two thoughts. They're not necessarily connected. I just want to hear what you have to say in response to them. The first thought, this feels parallel to teen girl bedroom culture, where we cultivate the safe space for ourselves, right? And that is their bedroom. Is the car becomes their bedroom. Right. The safe space they have to return to, where they fight, where they laugh, where they grow.
Where they are authentically themselves. One of them farts, and then the other one is like, did you just fart?
Yeah.
And I love it.
Yes.
I'm like, yes. When you are in deep intimacy with someone, you fart in front of each other, and then you talk about it.
Yeah. So that was one thing I thought of. The other thing is related to one of the texts I read, called Long Live the Tribe of Fatherless Girls by T. Kira Madden. It is a memoir. It is very lyrical. It is so well done, and I'm obsessed with it. She's an amazing writer. It's a rendering of her life and the experiences she has with both of her parents being in and out of active addiction throughout her life. That's certainly a part of it. But what she illustrates so well is the beauty and the danger and the complexities of girlhood and friendship within social hierarchies. That's the gist of that. There is a chapter that is particularly heartbreaking and profound. There's an older boy who she has a crush on. She agrees to meet up with him at the mall. She does. Her mom drops her off, and she says she's meeting another girlfriend there. She's not. She's meeting the boy. The boy comes into the mall and he wants to go to his car. I don't remember if he says he has something to show her or that they're going to go for a ride. I don't remember exactly. So he takes her into his car. One of his friends is also in the car. They both end up raping her by forcing her to give them blowjobs. I don't know how I want to say that, because that feels like a light way of saying it. Sucking their dicks feels like there's just no way to say it that feels like it gives it the level of violence that it deserves.
They force her to perform oral sex.
Yes.
On them.
Yes. And she does. And then that's it. And she has to clean herself up and look like everything's okay for when her mom picks her up. And as she gets older, she finds out that they did the same thing to other girls. And the last few sentences of this chapter are just particularly, I'm just going to read them. All of us in the same car, outside the same mall, all of us girls, now women, all of our hands reaching for a door. And I thought a lot about that chapter in conversation with car as a place of safety. But as soon as it's not, and this isn't particularly profound, but it feels important to me to say that as soon as it's not their car, as soon as that car belongs to a man, it becomes a dangerous place. A man's bedroom, a boy's bedroom is where bad things happen. Girls' bedrooms, bad things happen in them when men enter them. So there's just this constant betrayal of perceived safety that happens to all of us. And we're all just constantly reaching for the door. And those are the connections I wanted to
No, that's very profound. I hadn't thought of any of this. Because the thing I did think of is that after their car gets stolen and they have to go to this house party to track it down, they walk there. And the movie doesn't show their walk necessarily. It shows them starting to walk, and because they have the address, and then it shows them arriving at the house. The movie could have, in the same vein as the gas station scene, been like, here's why girls don't ever want to walk around at night by themselves, and why most girls and women make it a rule that they won't do it unless absolutely necessary. And here is an instance when that walking alone in the dark as two girls is absolutely necessary. And I don't think the movie needs to show us a scene of them facing explicit danger while doing that for that to click in most viewers' heads. It certainly clicked in mine. I'd imagine it does for a lot of people. And so I think what you're saying is absolutely true. And the idea of reaching for the door, it's twofold, because there's reaching for the door to get out of the dangerous car, but then also once her mom arrives, it's reaching for the door of this car that is ideally a safe space, but also I'd imagine is a space filled with fear, because there's probably a lot of girls who have been in that situation who think that no one can find out about this because then my mom's going to think I'm a slut. She's not going to understand that I was raped. So it just compounds on itself. But I also have a thought about cars.
Yes.
That relates to my intertextuality. If you don't mind us going there. Okay. One of the books I read the most as a child was the book Forever by Judy Blume. And so this thought relates to cars, but it also relates to the feeling I have that this movie, Plan B, exists within a sphere of normalcy. Meaning, I'm sure there is some evangelical mom with a blog who has written about why this movie is evil. She probably exists out there somewhere. But from what I understand, this movie gets to exist in the world quite calmly. As far as I know, there wasn't a lot of controversy or backlash surrounding this movie when it was released. It got put into the world, people watched it, people like it. It got really good reviews from professional critics. And I think that's great. You can contrast that with Forever by Judy Blume, which was first published in 1975, but my mom bought for me at a garage sale when I was probably in the 4th grade, 5th grade, that age. I'm assuming my mom didn't know what the book was about, which is a teenage girl falling in love and deciding to have sex for the first time. And it has very frank, direct sex scenes in the book. Conceptually, this book taught me what an orgasm was, because it just it uses that language and describes it happening. So
that's awesome.
This book gave me a lot more sex ed than I ever received in Catholic school. As I imagine, this book did that for a lot of people. And as a result of this, the book was incredibly controversial when it was first published in the 70s. And it remained controversial for a long time. I'm sure in certain circles, it still is. And this book was so controversial that 30 years after its original publication in 2005, it was number 2 on the American Library Association's top 10 most challenged books list. Wow. So like 30 years later, people were still like, kill it with fire, get it out of the library, which is just wild, but also makes a lot of sense because this is the US of A. The book was controversial for its depiction of sex, but it was also incredibly controversial for the scene where the protagonist, who lives in New Jersey, takes a train to New York City, goes to Planned Parenthood because she wants to start taking the pill, and gets a prescription for the pill and starts taking it. And she tells her boyfriend, I'm on the pill now, and they have a conversation about it. And as I was rereading the book and thinking especially about that scene and conversation with Plan B, I felt like Forever was an inverse Plan B, in the sense that the book Forever was super controversial, but the protagonist's class and geographical location and her access to public transportation make it incredibly easy for her to access healthcare. Whereas in Plan B, the entire movie's plot revolves around the struggle to obtain healthcare, which is influenced by the rural and conservative setting, and also the fact that they just happen to have access to a car. Because at first, when Lupe's like, we'll go to Rapid City to go to Planned Parenthood, Sonny is like, it's going to take 72 hours because we'll have to bike there. And Lupe's like, no, your mom's out of town. She left her car here. So it is pure luck that they even have a car to begin with. Otherwise, they would not have had a car to take this journey. So that struggle is all wrapped up in the plot of the movie. But the movie's existence is just this mainstream non-issue. So in that way, I think, meaning the way the movie exists in the world, it feels like this movie represents progress, but that idea also feels heavily at odds with how the world has regressed even since this movie was released.
Mm-hmm.
So this is my very slight car connection, but also to other things.
No, I am glad that you brought this up because I couldn't figure out where they were living. The fact that they have to drive to Rapid City, and I think it's like a 5-hour drive, I think they say, or am I making this up?
For some reason, 3 is sticking in my head,
Okay.
but it's still a couple hours.
3 would make sense. 3 would make more sense than 5 because there has not been a Planned Parenthood in Rapid City since at least 2013.
Okay.
I moved there in 2013. I needed to access Planned Parenthood. I tried to when I moved there in 2013. I didn't even have a car. I rode my bike. And I got there because MapQuest says it existed. I printed out my little directions, rode my little bike over there. It was shut down. I was Sunny and Lupe in this situation. And that was in 2013. And it was because it was protested and defunded. The only abortion clinic in South Dakota for over a decade has been in Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Okay.
And I was frustrated. I was a little frustrated by that because I'm like, that is easily figured out. Not that she was needing an abortion, but they were looking for a Planned Parenthood.
Right.
You could only find a Planned Parenthood in Sioux Falls. So they might have been living in the middle of the state, would be my best guess, because the Corn Palace is mentioned, which is in Mitchell, which is in the middle of the state. And Rapid City is all the way on the west side of the state. Sioux Falls is all the way on the east. So that would be my only thing is they should have gone to Sioux Falls. And I'm sorry, it's not entirely related to what you're saying. I didn't mean to derail the conversation.
It was interesting because I don't know really anything about South Dakota geography. So I understand they were like, we'll go to Planned Parenthood because Planned Parenthood is known for not turning you away. Whereas if we go to another pharmacy, it might just be another hyper-religious man who won't sell it to us. But I was like, at least try it. If Planned Parenthood's closed, go to another pharmacy. But
there might not be one.
Exactly.
It's that rural. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it didn't make sense that they were going to Rapid City. Either way.
When I picked this movie, I knew it was set in South Dakota, but I didn't remember that Rapid City was the destination point they were trying to get to. So then when I started watching it, and I was like, oh, Rapid City, that's where Maggie used to live. I was very curious about what you thought.
Yeah, that was it. Which is, I feel like a significant thing to get correct, to be accurate. I mean, I disagree with everything you said. If you live in a rural area, you don't have access to public transportation. And there might only be one pharmacy in your town. And maybe you can drive 1 hour to the next town, but that town is going to be just as conservative as the one you live in. And so they're going to deny you too, right? So you might as well just cut your losses and get to the place you think you have the most luck of getting the services that you need.
When I was a girl reading Forever, and that was the only representation I had ever seen of someone going to Planned Parenthood or getting on birth control, it made me think, oh, it's this easy. Because that was the only representation of it I had ever been given. Because with how I was raised, that was not ever part of the conversation. And so I did have this distorted sense of reality for a long time in terms of, oh, okay, if I ever need this, there might not be public transportation because there wasn't public transportation in Omaha, really. There was a bus system, but the bus system is notoriously bad in terms of not functional. So it's like, oh, you just go to Planned Parenthood and it's easy. Catherine got it. That's the protagonist's name. She got it really easy, but I didn't know yet about health insurance or paying for stuff out of pocket or the fact that Planned Parenthoods are closing. And so that was ultimately a limitation of the book in that it's doing something good by teaching me about something, by showing me what could be possible, but it's also not presenting me with the reality that I was ultimately able to live in.
I also had a distorted sense of reality. Not from a book, but because of where I lived. I grew up around Chicago.
Right.
There were Planned Parenthoods everywhere. Mm-hmm. If you needed to go to one, it didn't need to be a Planned Parenthood. It could just be a clinic. Mm-hmm. And you could access them. You could get on birth control. You could just go there because you needed help and they would give you resources for what you need help with. Mm-hmm. Free, like condoms. If you just needed some condoms, you could go. And so when I moved to Rapid City and I got there, and that Planned Parenthood was gone, I was like, uh-oh. I didn't know that worlds like that existed. Mm. And at that time, and I'm saying at that time because I think abortion is more or less entirely illegal in South Dakota at this point. But in 2013, the only clinic was East River in Sioux Falls. You had to go to Sioux Falls, talk to a counselor, then wait 72 hours, and then you could have an abortion. Well, nobody can fucking afford to drive to Sioux Falls, stay there for 5 days while you wait. God. And that's only if a counselor is available. So most people will go down to Denver because it's only about a 5-hour drive. Or at one point in time, it was actually easier to get an abortion in Wyoming.
Holy shit.
I can't imagine that's true. That is the state of South Dakota. And as far as them having to drive so far from wherever they were to access the one clinic, that was true. Right? That part of it made sense. Just it was in the wrong city.
Yeah. And that's when, despite the joy this movie brings me, there's a lot of baggage that comes with it in terms of when you leave the reality of this movie and return to the reality where we actually live. And so in that vein, I was thinking a lot about what are the limitations, if that's the right word. In my notes, I wrote limitations ? Because I don't know if that's the right word, to a movie like this. And if I had this movie when I was 15 or something, what would it have given me? But also, what would it have been unable to give me? Because my gut reaction to this movie is that I wish I had had this movie when I was 15. But art can only do so much sometimes, maybe. Because if I, at 15, had seen this movie and it had prompted a political awakening in me, because there was a point in time when I identified as pro-life and thought birth control was bad and thought that it was okay to judge people who had premarital sex, etc., because I was a product of the culture I was raised in. So if I had seen this movie and this movie had prompted me to reconsider those views and helped me to change my mind and helped me to realize my own autonomy and the autonomy of everyone else in this world, that would be undoubtedly good. And this movie would have then accomplished something very important. But also, if I, when I was a young teen, had ever found myself in a situation like Sunny's and had used the courage this movie gave me to tell my very Catholic mother that I need the Plan B pill, would she acquiesce and give me the Plan B pill? No, she wouldn't. And truthfully, I probably wouldn't have asked her because I know she would have said no. Are people who believe in conscience clauses or who believe that Plan B is equal to an abortion, which it's not.
Yes, absolutely
Are they going to watch this movie? Probably not. Right. And even if they did, is it going to change their minds? I don't know. But I'm still so glad that this movie exists.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad it exists because it could just be a stepping stone for some very sheltered adolescent girl realizing the kind of future world she wants to live in. Mm-hmm. So I hold that very close to me while also acknowledging that a movie cannot accomplish everything. A movie cannot fix the world, but a movie can help us realize what we want to change within ourselves and maybe what we want to try to change in the world.
Good. Oh man, I like the question about limitations and what any film, this one in particular, of course, but in general, like what a film can offer us and what can't it? What do we expect it to? I think that this movie offered us exactly what it should have, right? I don't think that it tried to do something beyond its scope. Like we said, it's smart. This is a smart movie, the way that humor is used. And maybe this is a reiteration. I'm not sure. But even though the young girls, young women watching this film probably aren't pro-life, you don't know. Maybe they have ended up on this clicking through Hulu. Even if they were raised in a household that believes in women's right to choose and just to exist and her autonomy, they might be living in a more urban area like where I grew up. And this movie would show them, hey, this actually isn't accessible for everyone.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know, so if you're going to be a part of the movement, abortion rights are important because most of the country, most of the land spaces, I'm not talking about people, they can't even access fucking groceries, right? Much less the Plan B pill or abortion care.
That's all very well said. Thank you. I do want to talk about the romantic subplots in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Because I have things to say about both of them, Lupe and Logan, and then Hunter and Sunny. Part of Lupe's story is that she has met a girl online, Logan. She really likes Logan. They've talked a lot, but they have yet to meet in person. And so part of this movie shows them meeting in person for the first time at a bowling alley where Logan is in a band called Rancid Tofu, and she's the drummer. And I just love that name, Rancid Tofu. And they meet for the first time and they talk about life and their insecurities and the joys and struggles of being queer. And it's just really sweet and good. And I don't necessarily have anything super profound to say about it other than it is sweet and it is refreshing in terms of the fact that it's a love story between two girls, but also the fact that it's we met online and it ends well. Because I was really worried the first time I watched this movie that she was gonna get catfished or something, and I just didn't want that for her because I love her character so much. So the fact that it all works out for her in that way is just really great. And I think the romantic plot that Lupe gets doesn't feel like filler because it's central to her identity as a person as she's discovering who she is. And it shows us that as she's trying to help Sunny, she's also dealing with her own stuff because she hasn't told Sunny yet that this person she's seeing is a girl. She is not out to her dad yet. We know that her dad is a pastor. There are fears there about how that's going to go. It ultimately goes very well. And it really makes the movie feel like it is Sunny's story and it is Lupe's story together. And I really like that.
Yes, agreed. And I love the fact that Lupe has not told Sunny that Logan is a girl. And I understand that it's operating foundationally on the level of the fact that we live in a homophobic, heteronormative space. If you are not heterosexual, there is this expectation society has that you quote unquote come out to them. And that's a problem. Absolutely. There is another level though of just friendship and respect for each other's autonomy that Lupe has not shared this with Sunny, of course, because she's nervous, but also she's not obligated to. Sonny assumes that Logan is a boy. Logan is traditionally, I think, probably a quote unquote boy's masculine, whatever name. But I just wanted to say that she doesn't have to come out to even her best friend until she is ready.
Right.
Or if she wants to. But it is not an expectation.
Yeah.
And I thought that was another smart thing that the film did. Yeah.
Because you could be cynical and make the argument that the movie does take some of that autonomy away from Lupe, because what happens is when they lose the car and they're searching for the car and they arrive at this house party to get the car back, Logan introduces herself to Sonny, and that's how Sonny learns that Logan is in fact a girl. So in that sense, Lupe did not entirely get to come out on her own terms. But it doesn't feel like the movie is being cruel towards her, because we're left for a long time with some dramatic irony after we know that Logan is a girl, and Sonny keeps referring to Logan as he because Sonny hasn't met Logan yet. So it just felt like an extension of that. And then obviously it goes great. Sonny is kind of confused, like, why didn't you tell me? And Lupe is honest in that she says, I wasn't ready yet. I was nervous. I was worried. So the movie still gives her space to have those complicated feelings, express those fears to her friend. And ultimately, Sonny is really happy for her.
I feel like, yeah, I kind of misrepresented that. I forgot that she finds out in this. But I feel like in part that sort of proves my point, too, that she shouldn't have ever had to say to Sonny,
right,
hey, by the way, Logan's a girl.
Yeah. And also, it connects back to your earlier point about the car as the safe space until a man takes it. Because if that man had not, I don't even remember what his name is. If he had not taken their car, they would have just been driving along, and Sonny would have been like, how was meeting Logan? And then Lupe maybe would have been like, it was great. She's awesome. And it would have been super chill and nonchalant. Right. So the intervention that took away some of Lupe's autonomy was just men thinking they can claim everything as their own by stealing their car.
Yes. Yeah, because he ends up being a fucking menace, too. He takes the keys. He's doing mess.
Yeah,
Also, and he won't give them the keys. So that's a really good point. Yeah, a man takes their fucking safe space.
Yeah.
Son of a fucking bitch.
But yeah, I think it was a really great addition to the movie. And then we also have the relationship between Sonny and Hunter. And I also have a thorny thought about Hunter that I am excited to present to you so you can help me.
Yes.
Because one, I like Hunter. I think that if I was in high school and someone in my class wore their cardigan sweater while we played hockey in gym class, I would also think that person is really cute. I related to Sonny a lot in myriad of ways, but in her attraction to this specific type of person, I was like, I get it. When he goes to her party and she gives him a drink in a Dragon Ball Z mug and he's geeking out about it and they're talking about Dragon Ball Z, that's really cute. But I had this feeling while watching this movie, because one of the first scenes with Hunter is when they are in health class, they're being shown this really terrible video that I alluded to earlier. And it's comparing a woman's body to the upholstery of a car, where a virginal woman is a fresh, new car. It's perfectly clean and it smells great and the seats are nice and smooth. And the more times she has sex with someone or has sex with multiple people, the more she's going to ruin her upholstery and devalue her car. And so the video they're watching shows this man seeing his woman's car for the first time. And it's literally a car and he's freaking out. And it's a whole way to just shame women and not actually teach them sex ed and just teach them abstinence only education instead. It was all very familiar to me based on my schooling. In the scene after they show the video, Hunter raises his hand and he makes an accurate point about the double standard that this video is presenting in terms of, why aren't we talking about the man's upholstery? Why should the upholstery even matter at all if the car still runs? And I had this weird feeling watching it where I'm like, why do I feel kind of annoyed with him right now? Even though he is saying the right thing and he is saying the thing that we should want teenage boys to believe. And the way the scene is played, I feel like he's being genuine. The way his character evolves, he reveals himself to have been genuine in that scene. But my gut reaction, which I was like, okay, I just need to sit with this and investigate why I'm feeling this way, was that I felt annoyed. And so I just want to put that out there, see how you respond before I say anything else.
No, I'm glad that you did, because I was also annoyed. I think I'll go so far as to say, I think that we're supposed to be annoyed.
Ooh, okay.
I think that we were supposed to have the expectation that he is this little like women's rights douchebag, because we know those types. Just because you have these ideologies doesn't mean you actually put them into practice. And so I thought that's who he was going to be.
Oh, okay.
And I feel like he was played up to be that.
Because I can't remember how I felt the first time I watched this movie. Since I was watching it for the second time more recently, and I knew the kind of person he became, that's what made it especially curious to me, the fact that I was feeling weird about it. I think it's just this natural distrust that a lot of women learn to have of men who act like or say that they care about women, because we learn eventually that they'll just say shit for whatever reason, but they don't actually believe it. They don't actually practice it in their everyday actions. So maybe that's what I was feeling.
I think that is exactly what you were picking up on. Okay. And I really do think the film was doing that on purpose. I think it was being smart in this way.
I hadn't thought about that, but I like that read on it a lot. So then that connects to the other scene, which we alluded to earlier, which is when Sunny and Hunter, they run into each other at this bowling alley, and he invites her to go to a diner to get dinner. And they're talking, and they're just having very normal conversation. The chemistry between them is good. The banter is good in terms of these actors work well together on screen and whatnot. But he can tell that she is distressed about something. And he asks her, what's wrong? You can talk to me about it if you want to. And so she explains to him what happened. And she talks about how she's worried that she's a slut. And she's like, I fucked up so bad. And now I'm dragging Lupe along into this mess and blah, blah, blah. And he sits there and he listens. And he responds to what she is saying by telling her that the word slut, there's such a double standard applied to it. We should just erase that word from, or not necessarily that we should erase it, because some women like to call themselves sluts in a way that's empowering, but it's complicated. You know what I'm trying to say, right? He tells her having sex is normal. You just engaged in a normal behavior. And again, I was watching the scene and I was like, why does this feel so weird to me? That he is the one who is saying these things to her. Why does she need to be assured of this by a man? But then I was like, well, that's because we live in a patriarchy and we need patriarchy to always assure us that we're not the most terrible woman, that we could be worse. But also, he is assuring her. He's not explaining the complexities of being a woman to her. Mm-hmm. He is responding to her emotional state and her concerns, and he is assuring her in a way that feels appropriate. And also, him behaving in this way and responding in this way feels like a representation of a teenage boy that would have, again, been very important to me if I was 15. Because he does represent the kind of boy that we should want girls to surround themselves with, right? And he represents a boy who we would hope would grow into a man who lives a life that involves caring about women. And so even though there's something about it that made me feel, again, thorny, I still really love that scene. I think it's a very sweet scene.
Mm-hmm.
And you see at the end of it that she is comforted. She feels better. She feels like she is in a non-judgmental, safe space with him. And ultimately, that's what matters the most.
I think, too, why this scene is so important is because exactly what you said. It shows us, I mean, I'm going to say how high our expectations should be. These shouldn't be high expectations, but they are. How high our expectations should be for young men and how they respond to the girls and women in their lives. Because I can imagine it, even myself, I can feel it in myself watching that scene. And there is this moment, I don't want to admit it, but there is something that felt a little thorny, thinking, this isn't realistic. Would he really respond this way? And then I really had to think, I'm like, first of all, yeah, of course, we should expect him to. And also, I am married to a man who would respond that way. There's not a doubt in my mind that is how he would have responded to someone in that situation. Understanding that he didn't have any ownership over her. Right. For one, they weren't together. Who she slept with is not his business. Right? Ned, fucking Ned, would have felt like he was entitled to who Nancy Drew was fucking.
He would have pulled up Dawson Leary, who's my number one arch enemy in the entire history of television. That's literally a plot line in season 4 of Dawson's Creek, in that Dawson feels entitled to Joey's virginity and cannot handle the fact that she literally has a different boyfriend who's not him. Anyways, that was what I was watching when I was a freshman in high school.
Right.
And I was seeing the titular, quote unquote, hero of the show behaving in that way.
Yeah.
Versus this, where it's like, this representation we're getting in Plan B has to be possible in order for the world to continue. I know that's very hyperbolic, but
yeah,
you know what I mean?
No, I know exactly what you mean.
The one last thing I just want to say about the love interests in this movie, both Logan and Hunter. And again, we're relating a lot to Nancy Drew this episode, but the love stories don't feel like the point of the movie.
I agree.
Because in Nancy Drew, technically the mystery is supposed to be the point. But the very last thing Nancy does in that movie is kiss Ned. That is the final action and image that we are left with in the movie. And the other issue with Nancy Drew was that it just focused on all that Ned and Corky bullshit rather than giving her any interiority. Whereas here, the romantic relationships are not the climactic third act event. It's these two friends going to this Planned Parenthood, realizing that it's closed, dealing with the emotional fallout of that, and going home and having these honest conversations with their parents. So the movie always feels focused on the friendship and the struggle to obtain healthcare, and the romantic relationships that Sonny and Lupe have help them grow and become more sure of themselves, but they also grow independently of those romances. So that's why I am thumbs up on the romantic subplots in this movie.
Yeah, they really stay subplots.
Right.
I think that's important.
They feel organic, but they don't overstay their welcome.
And I think that it is also true to girlhood, right? Where, yes, maybe there is, for a lot of adolescents, there's some kind of preoccupation with having feelings for somebody in a romantic or a sexual way. But it's not at the center of their fucking universe. There are other things happening in their lives that are just as important. And yeah, another thing that this movie does really well.
Agreed. So I have the immortal question. Maggie, what does this movie make you want to tell your younger self?
Oh man. I mean, my first thought is just to have higher expectations for men, for boys and for men. They're fucking capable of emotional intellect and intimacy. They are. And I understand the patriarchy hurts all of us. Maybe doesn't teach them that. Right. but it does not mean they're not capable of it. And that this is something that I feel like I did understand on some level, but with each passing year, I'm understanding it more, which is, yes, I love TJ. Is he my best friend? Yeah, we do everything together. But the center of my world, I don't have a center. The center of my world is always changing. And the friendships that I have, the relationships I have, the intimacy I have with the friendships in my life are just as important to me. Truly, they're just as important to me. There doesn't have to be a hierarchy of this romanticization of romantic love, right? You don't have to place it above those other relationships. It might be more important at times, but sometimes your friendships are going to be more important depending on the needs of the people around you. And that's normal. And if you're in a relationship with somebody who tries to convince you that the sun should rise and fall with them, that is a problem.
I think that's all very, very good advice. I think I would just tell my younger self that there is a lot she doesn't know. There's a lot she believes that one day she will no longer believe. And that notion would scare the shit out of her and seem impossible. But I am standing here now as proof that it was possible and it turned out all right. And that where I am at now, I believe, is where I need to be. But I still have more room to grow, I'm sure, and things will continue to evolve. Yeah. I think I'll just leave it at that.
I like that. I want to add, though, now that I, too, had different beliefs when I was younger. Like, I went to a Christian, quote-unquote, rock festival in Central Illinois for a few years. And when I was like 12 or 13, I bought this patch there that said abortion is homicide on it. And I sewed it onto my purse. And by the time I was 14, I was like, nope, got that wrong. But I could have ended up with a very different belief system than I have. And I didn't even necessarily grow up that conservatively, but I was in spaces where that was being preached to me and I didn't understand. And so people are capable of change.
Thank you, everybody, so much for listening. We would love it if you subscribed to the show on your podcast listening platform of choice and turned on post notifications. That way you won't ever miss an episode.
Check this episode's show notes for additional information on the secondary texts we reference. You can follow the podcast on Instagram at Tell Me I'm Sorry and email us your own musings and questions at tellmeimsorry@gmail.com.
You can follow me on Letterboxd at Marin Harrington if you're curious to know what other movies I watch outside of this podcast.
And you can follow me on Instagram at _Saint_Margaret_.
I'm Marin.
And I'm Maggie.
And you've been listening to Tell Me I'm Sorry. But before we go, you thought we were done, but we're not. Because we have an encore on this podcast where Maggie, great educator that you are, we're not done learning. And you're about to tell me what we're about to learn about next.
Yes. I'm really excited to tell you about this movie. Tell you what it is. The film just came out last year, I believe 2023, and it's called The Starling Girl.
I have never heard of this.
Oh my God. I'm so excited. It's called The Starling Girl. I cannot wait for you to watch it, and I cannot wait to talk to you about it.
I can't wait to look up this movie just to see what it's about. I don't say this to sound pretentious. It's not very often I don't know what a movie is. So this is genuinely super exciting.
Yeah. It's on Canopy with a K.
Okay.
So
cool. Yes. Yeah. Check with your either school or public library to see if you have access to Canopy, which is a free streaming service that has the most phenomenal catalog of movies ranging from new releases to silent movies from the 20s. If you're interested, you should do that. That's my plug for libraries for today. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.